Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is presented by Sports Field Management Association. Our featured speaker today is Colin McDonald, manager at Buffalo Agency. Today, he will be presenting Making Social Media Work for You. Attendees are muted during the presentation. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A or the chat feature. Please type in your questions and they will be answered throughout the presentation. Thank you for joining us today. Colin, you can go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. Looking forward to this. Thanks everyone for joining. I think this will be, it's not lost on me how valuable an asset time is these days. So, we'll be efficient with this. In terms of questions throughout, certainly, as Kristen alluded to, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye on them, but at the very least, I will plan to, we should have some time on the back end to go through anything that you'd like to in more depth. So I'm going to start presenting now. We'll make our way through this. I'll start with Kristen introduced me, but Colin McDonald with Buffalo Agency. I'm a manager with the team there, and I've worked with the SFMA team since January of 2019. So largely on social media. So, and then, my day-to-day is largely spent in the world of social media. So obviously lots of changes over the years, plenty to keep up with, but that's what we're here to discuss. And it's something that, 12 months from now, if we have the same presentation, we'd probably have a lot of new things to talk about. But, we're just going to eventually kind of walk through each platform, kind of the uniquities of each, kind of the big four currently, and we'll also touch on LinkedIn. We'll go through some tips and tricks, some demographic things to be aware of in terms of audience on each platform, just some background info on each of them and kind of where we're headed, kind of SFMA Social in general, and then kind of the trends we see on social media kind of with a broader brush. So back in, I think it's sort of been the 2020 SFMA conference in West Palm Beach, we presented on media relations, but this one's gonna kind of focus more in on social media in particular. So again, thanks for joining. I know time's valuable, so we'll get right into it here and take any questions along the way. So when we think about social media today, it's obviously come a long ways. My beginning with it was, I think MySpace was kind of big and AIM messaging. And if you think about Facebook going back to 10 years ago, posting on someone's wall is certainly different than how things look now. But today we're going to talk about things in general, but our team works in social media daily, and it can be tough to carve out time to keep up with the latest and the greatest, and that's our job. So it's not lost on me how much of a priority delivering a safe and pristine field is obviously a top priority for everyone on this call. So try to take this with the context of fitting this into your day-to-day and how social media can work for you rather than being kind of a chore, making it less of a task and something that's enjoyable and kind of helps you amplify your brand and your platform. So kind of start with the strategic overview. So kind of from an association goal, and I should mention our team also does public relations. So a lot of the association goal, there's overlap between the two channels. But for the association, our goal is, of course, to kind of raise the profile of the brand. And we want to remember who our core audience is, which is the sports field managers or field experts, as we call them on social. So we want to make sure that we have things that are relevant to you, career opportunities, technical resources, the latest happenings around the industry. But we also want to make sure kind of from a broader lens that across social media, we are amplifying it. So while we want to make sure that we stick to those core principles of making sure we're highlighting the technical aspects of the industry, we also want to make sure that we're using this as a chance to show off. Obviously the final output of the work that you all do is a tremendous thing. And sports fans and beyond are fascinated. We've seen the numbers. They're fascinated by the output and kind of the peek behind the scenes. And that's where we see a lot of our most successful posts, is highlighting that behind the scenes work. And again, social media is kind of a chance to show off the work that you all do behind the scenes. So when we think about kind of a day-to-day approach, we kind of look at SFMA social channels as really a bulletin board from around the industry. So we'll comb social feeds and find out what's going on in Utah, or if there's at Target Field, if there's an NHL event being held. Like, we'll take stuff from that and pull it together as a kind of a common gathering place for people to engage with content from around the industry. So there's engaging clips, and then we also want to have fun with it too. So if there's a sports field manager and their dog is on the job with them, like, we pull in stuff like that too. We want to be informative and educational, but we also want to make it a fun place to kind of grow beyond our current audience. And we've been able to do that pretty effectively over the years. And we'll show you some of those content examples a little later in the presentation. There's also kind of a seasonal flow to social, and I think that's important I've been talking initially about SFMA from a brand standpoint, but obviously we're going to get into kind of making social media work for you on a personal level. That seasonal approach for us, for example, today, you've likely seen the Stars and Stripes contest has been going on for, I think this is the 6th year. Today, the entries close. So if you've got one, go ahead and submit that entry today before the deadline. But things like that, seasonal flow, where we can highlight, again, kind of show off that work from members. And that's just one example of something that if you haven't engaged with a contest like that in the past, we've also got the mowing patterns that gets underway a little later in the year. And it's a great chance to showcase the work that you've done in a pretty simple format. All it takes is a quick submission, your photo submitted, and then that'll get amplified on the SFMA channels. So things like that are a good way to showcase the work that you're doing. And then kind of member spotlights. We've placed an added degree of emphasis on these. Really, in the past few months, we've always pulled stuff from around the industry and highlighted which SFMA member is responsible for whatever we're showcasing on social. But we've now got kind of a more direct approach that we've used with Nicole Sherry, for example, in Baltimore. We'll get more into that on how we do that. And it might be of interest to some of you on this call, where we basically create a shared platform where you can send us photos, videos, clips, and we'll take those, sift through them, and put them onto SFMA's channels, which have grown pretty significantly and have a good following. So that's a good way to get your work showcased on SFMA's channel. And we definitely want to open that dialogue. The more content we can get from members, obviously that kind of populates the feed and gives us more to work with, which is a win for us, and a win for you, kind of showcasing your work to a bigger audience. So I just want to go through some platform overviews. This is really for context, kind of on a day-to-day. You wouldn't be thinking about these things probably when you're posting, but it does help to kind of level set and sort of see, which platforms are doing what, and kind of where they're headed, where they've been. And again, we'll get into some of those tips and tricks a bit later, but you kind of see the sheer size of these. So Facebook is the largest in terms of monthly active users. 25 to 34-year-olds are the largest audience. On average, people spend about a half hour a day there. Again, these are things you take with you day to day, but something to be aware of is that Facebook is actually the slowest growing platform of the 4 you see listed here. So it's got its place. Whereas Instagram and TikTok are really visual and images and videos and really high degrees of emphasis on that. Facebook allows you to be kind of a bit more longer form. You can, we'll get into this on the next slide, but there's Facebook groups where you can kind of find your niche and sort of talk shop with people who really get it in the industry. And then you can go outside of that and kind of promote yourself to those who may not be as familiar with what the industry is all about. Just chiming in on Twitter quickly, slightly younger demographic. People on average spend about the same amount of time on Twitter daily as they do on Facebook. It's heavier on news and longer forum things. You see a lot of links to articles. From SFMA's standpoint, we'll, on a bi-weekly basis, link to the job board, kind of as an example. So there's a blend of things. Like we'll repurpose footage from TikTok onto Twitter, but we'll also link from Twitter back to SFMA's website. So it's a good place for kind of some longer form content. And also moves quick. One thing we've seen on a variety of clients we work with is over posting is a thing on Instagram and even TikTok, less so. It's not so much the case on Twitter, especially from a personal standpoint. That's where you can kind of chime in on the latest and greatest, and you've seen it gets pushed down in the feeds quickly. So this is a place for you to kind of be quick, chime in on conversations here and now, and sort of grow an audience that way. Instagram, very visual platform with more than half of the demographic coming in under the age of 34. Again, about a half hour a day. For anyone that's on Instagram, and obviously that's a lot of people with 2 billion monthly users, you've probably seen the changes. Some people get beta tested with different layouts. Live videos were a big thing at one point, and they still are to an extent. Instagram TV was pushed more. Now Reels and Instagram story highlights are kind of where the algorithm lends itself to, and where the most engaging posts are. So Instagram's kind of constantly changing, and we'll get into that, kind of where things are now and sort of how you can kind of hop on some trending, kind of find yourself in a trending conversation with some pretty easy steps. And then TikTok, the slide before this, we talked about how much social media has changed over the years. No one would have even known what a TikTok was as recently as 5-10 years ago. But now it's the fastest growing platform of the 4 listed here. Short form video, it can be quick and easy. One thing you'll notice about a lot of the content examples we'll show later is they're not highly produced. They're not going into a shop with a million editors. It's quick point and shoot, and then some tips of pairing it with trending sounds and hashtags can help you kind of chime in on the conversation here. And you might look at that age demographic there. 10 to 19 accounts for a quarter of the audience. That really speaks to sort of where the platform started. And as far as from SFMA, from a brand standpoint, we're pursuing TikTok to kind of hopefully reach that next generation of sports field managers. It does sort of afford that opportunity in a cool, relatable way, more so than the other 3. But we'll get into, again, I know I'm talking a lot about from the SFMA brand standpoint, kind of personal use and how you can leverage TikTok, which, again, we do this on a daily basis and work with all social media platforms day in and day out. And we've done more learning in the last 6 months on TikTok than any other platform. So it can seem intimidating, but today we're going to get into it and make it seem as simple as it is, really. One thing that stands out, fastest growing channel, and you see the amount of time spent on the other channels combined, it's about 90 minutes. TikTok users are spending up to 90 minutes per day. So they're spending 3 times as much time on TikTok as other platforms, just because it lends itself to that easy scroll onto the next one, onto the next one. And I would encourage you, either during or after this call, if you haven't downloaded TikTok, go ahead and just kind of get familiar with it. And if you have, just search #groundskeeper, and you will see how many kind of cool behind the scenes clips there are. And I was, and you likely will be surprised too, at just how intense the engagement is. It's people soak up that content. And I think it speaks to how cool the work is that's done by you all in the field, and how there's really an appetite for that on social media and these kind of quick, easy video pieces. So we'll go into each platform kind of specifically here, and then we'll go into kind of some tips and tricks on the back end, and then like I said, at the end we'll open it up for questions. Let I'm trying to look at the chat, not doing so terribly successfully. So I will continue through, and then, like I said, at the end, certainly any questions we'll go through those definitely. So so starting with Facebook, this is the place to. One of the unique aspects of this is Facebook groups. You'll find this on LinkedIn, but it's a little more kind of B2B professional. Facebook groups are an aspect where you can quickly engage with people who speak the language, so to speak, like you, kind of in inside baseball, if you will. And then there's the chance for you to share your expertise. We're gonna get into that on each platform, but your expertise is really what differentiates you. Like, people will seek out whatever content they're looking for. It's when they get there, that's where it's important for you to do so in a relatable way. Like I said, in Instagram and TikTok, it's done through visuals, but Facebook's where you can go a little longer form. And if you're featuring something from your facility, you can expand on kind of the why in a bit more of a written format. That being said, visual posts far outperform just copy. So just as you're going throughout your day, capturing content is, it can seem like an afterthought, but visuals just bring things so much to life, especially on other platforms, but it of course applies to Facebook as well. And then the other thing that you want to try to commit to is kind of a cadence. It doesn't need to be like I'm posting this time every day, but there are some best practices when it comes to what time you're posting. There are optimal times that our team has access to some data on when posts are performing best, and that's something that we could follow up with separately. We have some data that we could share with anyone that's interested in that. It's those little details that can seem insignificant, but even honing in on the when you're posting can make quite a bit of difference. So again, Facebook, certainly archaic is not the word to use here, but it is the slowest growing platform with the largest audience. So while TikTok's on its way up, Facebook's already there, and this is your current largest audience in terms of sheer users. Moving on to Instagram, obviously all about high quality visuals. One thing you'll learn too, and obviously you see this when you post something, we measure daily how posts are performing, and it's not hard to figure out. There will be posts that fall flat on their face. There's some things that we'll put together over the course of a week, think it's a great post, it'll resonate, and social media will tell you quickly what's working and what's not. So especially with Instagram, be bold, post, get creative, and you'll find out quickly what's resonating with your audience and what's not. Staying up to date with the changes can seem almost impossible, but as Buffalo agency, that's what we're here for, is we're in this day to day. So, at the end of this presentation, I've got my contact info there, and anyone on our team is always willing to help you kind of understand the latest and greatest on Instagram. It is basically, so you'll see Instagram Reels has its own feed now, to where static posts are getting 10 to 25% of the engagement numbers that they did at one point. Instagram Reels is where everything is focused. It's sort of Facebook and Instagram's answer, I suppose, in a way, to TikTok. So as we go along, we'll show examples of that, of how you can quickly capture effective video content. But just know that when you're going about Instagram, video is king, and that's not it's not something you are unaware of likely, but there's easy ways to kind of take it a step further with things like trending sounds, proper hashtags, and hashtags is a big piece of it, which we'll get into a bit more towards the end of the presentation. I've got a slide on that. And then the other thing with Instagram stories is a lot of brands are taking advantage of highlights now, and that's something that's taken advantage less so on the personal front. combining what Instagram is with kind of the visual nature of the sports field management industry, these stunning visuals of fields with new designs, edge work, fresh paint, sunsets, even things beyond just your normal day-to-day content. Those can be archived in Instagram story highlights, and those create a really nice visual. So when people are coming to your profile from your reel that you paired with trending sounds and hashtags, having these Instagram story highlights with your archive posts is almost like it's a pseudo art gallery. It's a place for you to showcase the work of you and your team, and do so in a really neat, effective way. On Twitter, this is, as I mentioned a bit earlier, while you want to be sensitive to overposting on some other platforms, and there's more optimal times and strategy to the cadence, Twitter is where you can be conversational, chime in on the here and now, because as you see with trending topics, it's there and then it's gone, potentially within the same afternoon or even quicker. Things that come to mind are, going back to the Super Bowl last year, there was the injury to Odell Beckham, like that, and immediately became a trending topic and really centered around some pretty critical elements of the sports field management industry. So that's just an example of something that you can chime in on quickly. I think a lot of times when we think of social, it's kind of like my post and how did it perform. Commenting and engaging and replying is just, especially on Twitter, is just as effective of a way to build your audience as posting a beautiful shot of your field. In fact, the more you reply and engage with larger brands, the more your profile is in front of a larger audience. So especially with Twitter, think of this as the most fast-paced one. Early and often, engage and retweet and make your voice known there, and use your expertise, because Twitter is so quick and trending. It's here and then it's gone. So that's your place to really kind of stay up with the latest and greatest. I also know, again, that many of you on this call are not spending your days on Twitter or refreshing your feed, but I will say what we've seen over the years, since I started with SFMA and Buffalo in 2019, is Twitter is far and away their most engaged and largest platform and following. So if you're not following SFMA on social already, which I'm sure most of you are, especially on Twitter is a place where we get a lot of engagement, and it's a chance for you to kind of engage with, again, similar to the Facebook groups, people who are in the know within the industry. And then the wild card here, I suppose, in TikTok. Again, people are spending insane amounts of time on TikTok. I'm guilty of it. I'm not sure anyone's ever gotten on TikTok and spent 5 minutes and moved on. It's one of those things where it's just so easy to scroll that next thing you know, 45 minutes or an hour has gone by. So TikTok is very personal to you. You can really make this your own thing. You want to be authentic, which sounds like a really generic piece of advice, but kind of voiceovers are a big thing on TikTok. So adding your expertise to any video that you do produce is an easy way to drive engagement. The other thing too is, again, TikTok can kind of seem so unfamiliar. At the end of the day, it's a point and shoot with your phone operation, and then you're a caption away from having your most simple TikTok. So you're just minutes away from getting started. And I think that's what we found most with TikTok, is just getting started is kind of the trickier part. But hands down, since we've sort of pivoted from less static content with SFMA to more video, that's what's driven the following through the roof. Engagement is tenfold what it is on static content. And TikTok is a great way to obviously find video content for inspiration, and then start to leverage your own in the weeks that follow. We'll kind of touch on LinkedIn briefly here. It's sort of doesn't fit the same mold as the others. I guess if you were comparing the two, it'd be closer to Facebook and Twitter. Obviously, it's a more buttoned up, polished B2B kind of dynamic than a TikTok or an Instagram. However, it's a good chance, again, for you to put your professional profile in front of others. And not only, I think what we see a lot of is people have their profile and they let it sit there. There's an appetite for engagement. And if you're consistently, perhaps even just once a day, going on, liking, sharing, commenting on something relevant to the industry or to your professional pursuits, that's a quick way to grow your audience, and it can be a much more engaging platform. For the better part of 18 months, LinkedIn, SFMA's LinkedIn has grown rapidly. It's been the fastest growing channel, which frankly came as a surprise initially, but when you see the engagement and the longer form dialogue that it allows, there's more of an opportunity to, I think network is the preferred term with LinkedIn, but kind of building your community. LinkedIn is a really effective way to do that. And it's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum to a TikTok, where the largest age demographic is that 10 to 19 window. So there's certainly a place for it. It's just, I think there's a popular meme that's like, this is for Snapchat and this is for LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn's a bit more polished, and buttoned up, but this is the place for a really effective place for you to kind of expand your network. So I kind of want to get into just SFMA Social, which again, if you follow them, you're familiar with a lot of this content, but just sort of give some ideas of what works and kind of the proper, not the proper, but kind of the blend of content you can use to sort of fill your calendar. I don't think anyone here is we work off of a monthly content calendar where we've got it mapped out, what's posting when. I don't think that's a need for anyone on this call here, but it is certainly something that helps you kind of frame sort of just how often you want to be using social, and it helps you kind of commit to a cadence. But for the sake of this call, just showing some things here. So you'll see the diversity of the content. This is all from Twitter. So the very brand centric piece of thing. So we want to tell the brand story. And obviously in January at the conference, there was a big new chapter to the SFMA story, and that was the rebrand. Social allowed us to, whereas on an Instagram, you're kind of just showing the visual. Twitter allowed us to roll out the rebrand in terms of the logo. We had the unveiling video. We had the time lapse of some students there painting the new logo outside the convention center. But we also were able to kind of tell the why, and that's why we were able to link back to the SFMA website, drive traffic there. And the point being, Twitter really lends itself to that diversity of content. So while you've got that where you're linking back to the website and posting longer form articles, you can also see this video content is something that was just pulled from TikTok, repurposed for Twitter. It was one of the more popular posts of the past 2 months. I would say a good way to think of it and how we try to approach it with SFMA is where this brand centric stuff is kind of the industry specific points. And the relevant video content is for people outside the industry that just want to see cool visuals. And that's where we kind of reach beyond the core audience and bring in new followers is these video pieces. So we're going to get more into kind of ways to go about capturing the video you see in the center there. But it's sort of speaks to the diversity of content. You want to have a healthy blend between something like this new vision for the future, and then also a fun, lighter video piece. And then a good example of the conversational aspect of it is just scrolling Twitter. Adam Wainwright had a post there in the bottom left, you see, kind of tipping his hat to groundskeepers and sports field managers. So we pulled that, tagged the Cardinals, and it turned out to be one of the more engaging posts really of year to date. So that's an example that, again, speaking from a brand standpoint, it made all the sense in the world, but that's something that you scrolling through your Twitter feed could also chime in and reply with a photo of your crew hard at work. Just be part of that conversation. And again, it gets your personal brand out in front of a larger audience. Something we talked about a bit earlier was member features and how, we think of SFMA as like a bulletin board of pulling things from around the industry to create a really cool centerpiece that members will appreciate and engage with, but also kind of the sports fans and beyond that are just there to kind of consume really cool dynamic content. Earlier at the US Women's Open in North Carolina, we connected with Sun, who it's a pretty straightforward process. We create this shared Google folder, and this is, I think, where it's important to take that context of, we acknowledge, especially me after being on this, working with SFMA for 3+ years now, that again, your top priority is out on the field, delivering a safe and a high quality facility. So social media can certainly fall to the back burner. So as Buffalo, we want to make it as easy as possible for you. We want to take the work out of thinking of a caption, a hashtag, music to go with it. So what we did in both of these instances is created just a shared Google folder, passed along the link, and then just as Sun, and you see Nicole Sherry there on the right, went through their days, they just added some videos, they added some photos, and then shared a little bit of context separately with us just about kind of what was going on. And this is a good example too of where we kind of marry the PR I referenced earlier with social media. You'll see the post on the left is from field experts from SFMA Social, but the post on the right was actually with Women's Health magazine. This started as something where Buffalo was in contact with an editor there about featuring Nicole Sherry as and kind of the work that she does with her team at Camden Yards. That kind of evolved over time from a written piece to a social media feature where we had initially planned to use the content that Nicole shared with us organically from field experts, but we passed that along to Women's Health magazine, and they amplified it out to their 2 million followers. So it's just an opportunity to, and kind of I think sort of provide some context around what Buffalo does and how we can work with anyone on this call to try and get the work that they and their team are doing featured to some larger audiences. And this next slide is just kind of a layout of our role. How we would go about it is we would just connect with anyone that's interested. We secure the assets in a folder. And then whether we're editing them and sharing to SFMA's social channels, that's a good way to, so between Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, it's around 19,000 total followers. We can get your work featured on those channels, tag you, and then get some additional eyes, kind of drive some traffic to your own pages. And then anyone we're working with in a PR capacity, while the traditional result is something written on a website or whether it's in print, we work with editorial teams to feature on all platforms, and that Women's Health magazine is a good example of how we can get your work featured on a larger platform. So again, would love to hear from anyone on the call as we wrap up the slides that would be interested in doing this. And like I said, now we've got a pretty set process where it's ideally a light lift for you and your team on a day-to-day, and it provides some good content for SFMA to feature and highlight again the work that you and your team are doing. Some more content for some inspiration here. You can see, again, I can't harp on this enough, that there's no crew coming out and editing or multiple people involved. It's truly a point and shoot operation, capturing things kind of throughout your day. And you see on the right there kind of just a day in the life of the grounds crew, and it got tremendous engagement. We repurposed it onto SFMA's social pages, and then this was one that, again, you see the hashtag down on the right, groundskeeper. If you go and search that hashtag, it'll populate dozens and dozens of clips like this, and you'll be blown away by the engagement on these for really how simple they are to capture and edit. Kind of a little trick, and we've got kind of a toolkit if you wanted to follow up, and we could share that separately. But the song, the audio circled in the bottom left of the screen. It seems like an afterthought, but this would apply to really Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, but more specifically Instagram Reels and TikTok. When you're posting content, pay attention to some trending sounds. And like I said, we have a toolkit of how you can kind of track down what those trending sounds are. But these almost work as a hashtag themselves. So, where you would maybe go search hashtag groundskeeper and see all these videos. You can also, people are also consuming videos by trending sounds. And so by being strategic and picking up a sort of popular song that's getting a lot of views on social, that's another way to kind of, quick and easy, just that little detail can help you reach beyond your current following. And speaking of that current following, this video on Instagram and TikTok, since that's really exclusively on TikTok and largely on Instagram where the algorithms are pushing, the more video content you can get and the more you can pay attention to these little details like hashtags and trending sounds, you'd be surprised at the reach that you get. Where a static post might reach 1,700 people, we've seen videos reaching up in the hundreds of thousands in terms of impressions. And that's how SFMA from a brand standpoint is kind of growing their following. But the same thing applies to the individuals that are making these videos. Again, I encourage you to go kind of check them out, kind of look at these handles for more inspiration, and you'd be able to see kind of just how big these audiences get, because there is an appetite for this cool kind of behind the scenes footage. This is kind of a more static example of, not everything has to be video. While it's, certainly favored on many platforms. On Twitter here, you just see some of the different kind of effective pieces of content that get some good engagement. It's kind of some 4th of July designs on the left and right, and in the middle, more of a fun kind of playful approach, where this individual was highlighting kind of the family aspect, and that kind of relatable piece of content performed quite well. So it's again, you kind of want to ideally like get yourself into thinking into kind of content buckets, so that it's not it just helps to kind of organize your thoughts in terms of what kind of different content you're capturing. But there's really no such thing as bad content. You'll put it up and some posts will fall flat on their face, and that happens. And like I said, you'll quickly learn what performs well and what drives engagement and what doesn't. And that's part of the beauty of social media. Is the worst thing that happens is something doesn't perform well in terms of engagement, and you learn from that and you move on and you try something new and creative. I think that's the whole goal of this, is to kind of make social media less of an afterthought and a chore, and something that's more fun and can kind of amplify the work that you're doing on a day-to-day in a really nice, polished manner. I did want to touch on the hashtag strategy here, just showing an example of, in the parentheses here, you'll see kind of the volume of posts by hashtag, and you'll see as it gets more specific, the volume of those posts go down. So where you see sports field over 13,000 posts, sports turf 20.6K posts, but when it gets a little longer, sports field management, sports field managers, you see it's down comfortably under 1,000. So I think there's what we see with a lot of brands in particular is the want to go to a really specific hashtag. If there's a Northeast Georgia sports field convention, for example, doing hashtag NE Georgia sports field convention is great if you want to have people to come find your content specifically for that event, but it's going to be very niche. So a tendency with hashtags is to get very granular, and you actually kind of want to go broad, even beyond just sports field management. You're posting on a Friday, hashtag Friday, Friday energy, weekend mood, things like that, that kind of, again, gets you in front of a larger audience that may go just beyond the sports field management or kind of the industry folks going beyond that is how you kind of effectively grow your audience. So just kind of some steps to take. Is, again, it sounds so simple, but again, even for us working in it day to day, like committing to a cadence, a frequency is a good way to just take this from an afterthought and something that seems like a pain to, let me get one post up a week. And then you'll start to see the engagement, and just with consistency, you start to develop a tone. People are looking for your content more. And you just start to expand that presence to where it's something where perhaps you're doing it more and kind of finding your stride. Your niche and your voice is that's your power on social media. Like I said, people find content kind of randomly. If you're scrolling through TikTok, kind of random things will come up, but the stuff you engage with is what you start to see more and more of. So once people find you, if you've got that voice and you're consistent, they'll continue to find you and engage with your content moving forward. Following the trends can't be understated. Social media changes so much, even on a daily basis, and a month from now, some things will be different. So keeping up with the trends in terms of hashtags, those trending sounds we talked about, anything, and if there's any questions beyond that that you'd like to go into, we're about to the end of the slides here. I'm happy to discuss more. And then, Buffalo Agency is here day in and day out, working with SFMA on their social. So it's something where if you have questions moving forward, 3 months from now, reach out to us, and we're here to help and give answers. And then just building your community. That happens again I think people think of social in terms of like, what have I posted and how did that deliver in terms of performance? Build your community on Twitter, LinkedIn, just by chiming in. Chiming in goes a long way. It starts to develop your voice, your presence, your brand, and it's the most effective way to kind of engage with your current community and expand beyond it. So that's the length of our presentation. Before discussing anything that stood out to anyone and any specific questions, but I again, after 3+ years working with SFMA and starting to get to see the work that you guys do on a daily basis, we know that time is of the essence, and there's more important things in your day-to-day than social media. So what we're here to do, and what hopefully this did, is try to simplify some of it, make it manageable for you, make it easy, and make it something that's less of a chore, and more of something that you're wanting to do to help amplify the work. Because that's essentially what we try to make SFMA is for people beyond the industry. We try to make it a place where we show off the work that you're doing. So again, I think we'll probably circulate this presentation, so you'll have my contact info. And if there's anything we can help with moving forward, I hope you found this helpful, and we'd love to work with you in the future. So guess I think we'll take some questions now. I think I can see that. Yeah, I've got the chat here. Let's see. Let me just read through this.
Yeah, so if any attendees have questions, you can enter those into the Q&A feature or the chat, and then Colin can answer them for you, or you can always follow up with an email as well.
Yeah, so I see the question from John about the multiple platforms. I think it's kind of what I draw back to is sort of at the beginning of the presentation. I think knowing the demographics, the audience that's on each platform is a big thing. And who do you want to be reaching? TikTok skews so much younger than a LinkedIn or a Facebook. So not every post has to go on every platform. If it's something that's kind of longer form, a blog post, for example, that lends itself perfectly to LinkedIn. Whereas featuring a 30-second clip, that's more geared towards Instagram and TikTok. So it can seem overwhelming trying to keep up with 4, 5, 6 different platforms. But I think hopefully level setting and realizing kind of each one has its own benefits to it, and kind of thinking through what content makes sense for which platform is a good way to approach it.
All right, well, it doesn't look like there are any other questions. So thank you, Colin. This presentation was recorded and it will be available on the SFMA website. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everyone.